Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which supports the Public Television Outreach Alliance. Continuing project support is provided by Metropolitan Life Foundation in the interests of healthier young people. The First Lady of the United States, Nancy Reagan.
These children have come into this world filled with a promise of developing into healthy, happy adults. But unless you and I act now, this new generation of Americans will encounter an uncertain future. Young people today are facing the terrifying specter of drug and alcohol abuse. 1 out of every 4 teenagers will become a problem drinker in high school. But there are other related problems, which also threaten to destroy the lives of our nation's children. An American teenager commits suicide almost every 90 minutes.
I really felt like there was just no other way, just slit the wrist.
4 out of every 10 girls will become pregnant before they leave their teens.
It never really occurred to me that I could get pregnant to having sex.
1 out of every 4 teenagers will drop out of high school.
I figured out now it's a big mistake. I should have just stayed in school. That's why I'm 18 in the 10th grade.
The problems of dropping out of school, teen pregnancy, teen suicide, and drug and alcohol abuse have all reached startling proportions. But something can be done. 3 years ago, many of you joined me on a show called The Chemical People. Out of the program, 8,000 task forces sprang up across the country to record thousands of victories against teenage chemical abuse. Now, we must expand that success into a new challenge. In the next hour, we'll take you to 10 communities across the country where dedicated individuals are working wonders with their troubled teens. As you watch their stories of success, I urge you to become involved, to join in this great effort to help turn a generation at risk into a generation of hope.
The problems of our teenagers have reached epidemic proportions. Once, perhaps, life was simpler. The lines between right and wrong were clearer. But today, it's a baffling world if you happen to be 13 or 14 years old. Connections with family, schools, even with peers are often without real structure or meaning. These are issues that cut across political, economic, and racial boundaries. Republican or Democrat, urban or rural, there are no easy answers, only victims. But luckily, there are people who are working toward answers, developing programs and pioneering innovations. The first of these is in Oklahoma, where 300 task forces are still thriving, helping to keep teenagers off drugs. They work with all kinds of groups, including an unusual rehabilitation center called the House of Life. Here, you really begin to understand what teenage chemical addiction is all about.
I don't know, after I was beat and raped by my boyfriend, I guess, I had a lot of fears about males, but when I was high, I wasn't scared of them. It didn't bother me.
I thought there was nothing I could do. I was dead, and I might as well just sit around and wait to die. I remember when I was sleeping in ditches for a while, after I'd used up all my friends, and a lot of times I'd sit and just say, might as well just give up and sit on a ditch and scream. It's about all I'm good for.
I tried to commit suicide. I failed it. I attempted it, but I failed at it. That's in the end what brought me to the House of Life.
Through group counseling, these kids begin the long, hard road to recovery by sharing the suffering they went through, even if it's as painful as what 16-year-old Lisa shares with her father.
It happened about a week, I guess, after I called Mom and told her that I needed that money and she was going to give it to me, and I couldn't take it. I couldn't go running back to y'all after I'd hurt you so much. So I decided I was going to get the money my own way. And I was in the restaurant working my last night. And a man came in and wanted to go to bed with me. So I told him it would cost him. And I went and I sold my body.
Lisa's story isn't that uncommon. What's unusual is her willingness to open up.
As far as the past, you know, I still love you, okay? And you are my little girl, and you always will be my little girl. I forgive you for it, and you have to forgive yourself for it.
Over and over again, teenagers who've hit bottom get the chance to start a new life.
This program's given me self-respect to where I can feel like I'm worth something, because before I didn't, you know, I just really felt like I was a lousy loser, and I didn't have no place in the world, and all I had to do was use drugs, you know.
I've got integrity and I've got self-worth and I've definitely got my sobriety. If I couldn't have anything without sobriety, that's like the base.
At the House of Life, there are no cooks or janitors. Instead, young people learn a basic building block of self-esteem, how to take care of themselves. The next step is to take what you've learned to the outside world. This is where task forces enter the picture. Working with House of Life director Frank Puslik, they take these teens out to local schools to tell the truth about drug addiction.
We call outreach.
During their most recent visit, 100 school kids admitted they were chemical abusers and asked for help.
Another 150 kids at lunchtime were going around the school wearing signs on their shirt that says "It's over," that they made out of their lunch bags and papers that they found. And "It's over" is our watchword. We look at the kids in the schools and we say there's only one group of people in the public schools that can get drugs and alcohol out of the schools for good. And make sure it stays that way, and it's you. And it won't happen until you say it's over.
Task forces are also involved with prevention. Drunk driving is the single biggest killer of teenagers in the United States. That's why task forces have developed workshops they take right into the schools across the state of Oklahoma.
Who's ever riding with me? Let's go now.
No, man, you've had too much drink.
This role-playing is part of a workshop called Say It Straight. Psychologist Paula Englander-Golden helps teenagers learn a new meaning for the word cool, to care about your friends.
Come on, Ron.
You're endangering your life and others.
Yeah, but I don't know if I can trust you guys.
You get picked up.
Come on.
You can trust us a lot better than you trust yourself.
Give one of us the keys and we can take you home.
Yeah.
Do you see the strength in numbers? How much easier it was when all of you were together encircling your friend?
Yeah.
From my experience working with about 2,000 kids, I can tell you unequivocally what I perceive out of my experience. Kids don't want to be into drugs. Kids don't want to be into getting pregnant. Kids don't want to be into getting crazy. Kids don't want to be into killing themselves. What kids want to do is what every one of us wants to do. Make sense to myself and make sense to somebody else. Make contact in a deep and meaningful way.
With this sort of training, it becomes safe for young people to say things they never could have said before.
He said he doesn't know.
Peer pressure becomes a positive thing. The simple idea of using peer pressure in a positive way is also being implemented by task forces in Odessa, Texas, where distances are said to be measured not in miles, but in six-packs. If you're under 18 and in trouble with the law, you don't go through the regular justice system. You face one of the most unusual jury systems ever created.
Here for teen court? Yes, sir. This is your community service list. You need to go through the courtroom.
After 14-year-old Ray Castaneda was picked up on a drug offense, he and his mother had a choice. Go through regular juvenile court or come here to teen court.
Give them the best and the fairest shake in the world.
These are the jurors, bailiffs, clerks, and attorneys of teen court, most of whom have been in his shoes before.
First, we're going to discuss Ray Castaneda's case.
He's charged with selling a controlled substance on campus, so this
Retired Judge Ken Spencer and court coordinator Natalie Rothstein help brief the kids on each case.
He doesn't use them himself,
He doesn't use diet pills, he uses other things.
Okay, all right, I didn't understand.
Ray and his diet pills might have been thrown out of a regular juvenile court, but here they're taken very seriously.
Zero image of self.
He says he's been drinking and smoking 5 to 6 joints an evening during the weekend. Try him on selling, but you can't make it a C because this other stuff.
That other information is for our information.
Because they've been on both sides of the jury box, these kids can be understanding as well as tough.
Absolutely.
What I'm saying is don't be real cruel and tacky with him like you do other people on the stand. I've seen you do that sometimes.
In the pretrial interview, Ray and his defense attorney try to be honest with one another.
The principal. Now, what did you sell to him?
Little pills.
The teen court's basic philosophy is that you got to catch young offenders before a law-breaking behavior pattern becomes established, and to try to change that law-breaking pattern of behavior to a law-making pattern of behavior.
You had sold them to some friends and they had told the principal, right?
Kids aren't sentenced to jail, but to hours of community service work at local hospitals or boys' clubs. But the real impact on someone like Ray is when he's confronted by a jury box full of kids like himself.
I used to do it.
All right. We, the teen jury, recommend the following sentence: 19 hours of community service.
People were very skeptical at first. We went around and talked to various law enforcement people, to the community service agencies, anybody who would listen. We laid our groundwork pretty well. By the time the teen court opened, there was a little skepticism. There was, as there always is, some trepidation, even on our parts. Is this really going to work?
The answer was yes, it does work for thousands of kids like Wes, who used to be a drug dealer at Odessa High.
I got caught drinking up here at school, and I had my trial and everything, and then I went and did my community service work and my teen court hours, and that really woke me up to what all that was going on and got me more or less decided to quit. It's because, then I found out I could get caught. If I get caught doing that, I could get caught doing something else.
Like Wes, Ray Castaneda will probably never be back in teen court. Of the 2,000 drug cases tried here, there's never been one repeat offender.
Okay. All right, Ray.
The success of these task force efforts is helping change the lives of thousands of teenagers. Drug abuse is not isolated from other problems. Ray Castaneda was a drug user, and he had also started talking of suicide. Lisa, a drug addict at the House of Life, had also dropped out of school. All these issues are symptoms of deeper problems, stresses and changes in American life.
If you don't involve your young people in
Dr. Stephen Glenn, former head of the National Drug Abuse Center, says that teens today were born into a different world from generations before them.
What's really becoming apparent for us now as Americans is that in the changes that occurred in our lifestyle right at the end of World War II and from then on, as we urbanized, had the baby boom, brought in technology, a whole lot of things exploded for us, we found with each of those opportunities that came into our life, there was a hidden cost. Some examples of the impact of some of the changes would be when television came into our environment, filled our leisure time, gave us a window on the world, but also preempted a great deal of dialogue within the family and made the process of moral and ethical development much more difficult for parents and children.
Dr. Glenn believes that trust between teenagers and adults is a starting point.
Closeness and trust has been shown to be a primary variable in predicting young people's risk to things like suicide, chemical dependency, teenage pregnancy, and closeness and trust by or beyond the age of 12 and those you live with, those that teach you, and the other significant adults in your life is a primary issue. Well, you don't build closeness and trust with people you don't spend some informal time talking with and doing some things with each week.
These changes in American life create ever bigger problems for young people. Nowhere is this more evident than in the dropout rate. Every year, thousands of teenagers empty out their lockers and go home, never to return to school. Each has a reason, but all seem to say they were bored, discouraged, or just plain couldn't keep up. The statistics are astonishing. 10 million kids have dropped out of high school since 1975. The cost to government is $20 billion every year. But beneath the statistics are stories of people, kids with dreams that may never come true.
To begin with, I didn't get along with the people at school. The principal, some of the teachers, a lot of them were nice, but some of them just didn't seem to care. Unless you were involved in sports or cheerleading, you know, were really smart, really bright, they didn't seem to be, you know, you were just pushed back in the corner. I started staying out, staying home, going other places, and eventually I wound up pregnant, and I never went back. They never called my house to see where I was or what I was doing. I was 15 and I wasn't in school, and they never called. If I'd have gone on to school, I could have made my own choices. I'd like to have been a nurse. That's what I always thought I'd be. You'd see at graduation, when all the kids would graduate, they'd throw their caps up in the air, and I thought it was because they were glad it was all over. It's not that. It's that they finished. They did good. You know, they're proud of themselves. You're either proud of yourself or you're not. And if you're a quitter, you can't be very proud of yourself because you're not very much.
Sharon Shell dropped out of school in Dalton, a North Georgia town known as the carpet-making capital of the world. Once it was noted for having one of the highest dropout rates in the country, a staggering 50%. For a proud community, that statistic was hard to live with. Assistant Superintendent Sue Phelps describes how the town finally rallied together.
The community was not aware there was a problem. In fact, they can't believe it. But I felt strongly, and my board felt strongly, that the community was the kind of community that if they knew it, that the potential and the desire and the wherewithal to solve the problem was here, and the community would solve the problem. And that's proven to be very, very true.
Huge numbers of kids were leaving school looking for factory jobs, but then, like Sharon, running into problems once they were out on their own. Sue and others decided that in Dalton, business leaders were the ones who could turn things around.
Our industries responded. People like John Dashler stepped forward and said, hey, dropout's not a school problem, it's everybody else's problem.
Sue's revelations stunned one of Dalton's leading businessmen, John Dashler.
When I heard that our high school dropout rate was in the vicinity of 50%, my immediate reaction to that was disbelief. And secondly, hey, this may be the reason that I'm having all these problems, and maybe this is the reason that the whole community is having problems.
Dashler suddenly saw that his undereducated workforce was costing him money due to absenteeism, job turnover, and expensive training time. He also saw that the town's crime and welfare rates were rising right along with the dropout rate.
Basically, we've had 208 companies that have agreed to a 5-point plan. I'd like to see if we could interest J&J Industries as a businessman.
Sue and others convinced businessmen that not only would the quality of life be improved, but so would their bottom line.
Care costs, attendance at work. And yeah, I know your company is interested.
200 companies agreed to work closely with the schools and hire kids full-time only after they'd graduated. Many mill owners, like Tom Jones, made the personal commitment to go out to schools and talk with students.
When they started urging industrialists to go out and talk to high school students about staying in school, I thought that was an uphill selling. Because if the teacher couldn't sell them on it in the classroom with them every day, how could we walk in and in 30 minutes change anybody's mind? And I was not 100% for it, but after the first time it was done, the success rate was pretty high.
The hard work finally started to show results. Potential dropouts stayed in school, and many who had already dropped out came back.
I just quit because I hated school, but I would never do it again. I regret it.
If you want to go to a carpet mill, most of the time they're working with the schools and they don't want to hire unless you got a high school education.
The middle of the year, I decided to stay out. And I figured out now it was a big mistake. I should have just stayed in school. That's why I'm 18 in 10th grade.
We would say, hey, what can you do? Whether you're an owner of a large company or whether you're Sharon Shell, who's in a PTA group when we were making that appeal.
How many of y'all thought about dropping out of school? There you go. If I had it to do over again, I'd stay in school. It's true. Anybody you ask and they're telling you the truth, if they had it to do over again, they never would have left. if you quit school and go on a job, there's going to be more times on a job that you're going to say, God, I wish I wasn't here. I'm going to quit. I'm going to walk away from this place. I ain't never looking
Sharon
back.
feels so strongly about the issue that she takes time off work without pay to come speak with students.
It's scary to stand up in front of a bunch of kids and talk, but if I talk to 10 different kids and one kid that's going to drop out stays in school because of what I said, then it's all worth it.
The whole thing got started because of one person, and I think it can be solved because of one person's, each individual, and that's been a part of what we've worked on, is that it doesn't take anything fancy, but it takes all of us.
I owe it to the community to put something back in, and I chose this area as an area that I think will make a tremendous difference today and, more importantly, tomorrow in this community.
You're going to look back and you're going to look at your life one of two ways. You're going to look at your life and say, it's been a pretty good life. You know, I've done pretty well for myself. Or you can look back and regret every minute of it.
When Sharon dropped out a few years ago, she felt nobody cared. But today that's changed. Because a few people working together do care, the town has seen results. In the 2 years since the program began, the dropout rate has come down 10%. Keeping teens in school is only half the battle. What happens once they're back in school is even more important. Like many large cities, Atlanta has a staggering dropout rate. Last year, Calvin Jones was part of the problem, hanging out on street corners and headed for trouble with the law.
I'm from a broken down family, and I had to go out at an early age and get a job and support the 5 of us. I went to school, and all that anger I had inside of me, I never showed anybody at home. I would go make boisterous statement and fight the student, and, you know, just do anything to get people to realize that I was there, but I went about it the wrong way.
6 months ago, the people from a program called Exodus convinced Calvin to give school a second chance. Suddenly, he found himself getting up every day and making it to school on time. But this is no ordinary school. It's on the top floor of Atlanta's largest department store. The owners of the store came up with the idea of opening up their top floor to 125 dropouts who couldn't make it in the regular school system. In this unique setting, young people get help with personal problems that can interfere with school. Drugs, pregnancy, or trouble with the law, according to one of the founders, Dave Lewis.
In most cases, their attitude is not a positive one. So when we talk about building creative, positive attitudes, and they can see what their potential are, then they begin to look at life different. When they can improve their self-image, you know, a lot of kids say, well, hey, I can't do that because I come from the low-income district or from the housing project. Nobody in my family ever had anything. Why should I think of it? Hey, you can be anything that you want to be.
Now, what do we do with remainders?
With this kind of encouragement, math problems that once were symbols of failure become a challenge. With a high ratio of teachers to students, the classroom becomes more personal.
I guess the teachers just care so much, they fuss at you. Do your work, do your work. They try to make you learn, you know, as a friend, not really as a teacher.
Every week, the progress of each student comes under the close scrutiny of the entire staff. In Calvin's case, they all agree his schoolwork has been slipping.
Coach from both ways. I mean, there are a lot of positive, but mostly negative.
Calvin could do a lot better. He doesn't do his homework like he should. And he can do very good work when he wants to.
Okay. He's absolutely lazy. That's just one thing. He does his homework, but I have to stay on him. I constantly pounce on him.
So what kinds of things in terms of our social services, is there anything that we can do?
I really think that in the staffing session, we'll see him.
The next day, Calvin is called before his faculty group and given the message. We're not here to waste time with you.
What I'm asking you to do is to put forth all of those leadership skills that you have learned and all of those things that are within you that make you Calvin and make you a dynamic person, and put that into the student that you are, and that's all we're asking you to do. We're not jumping on you, but we're jumping on you because there's love from all of us to you, and we see that you are a flower that needs to just blossom and not sit and die.
This much attention has a dramatic effect on kids who aren't used to this kind of encouragement from adults.
Go at it like that, then
The kids are special because they know we love them, and we do, and I think that's kind of major criteria for working here. If you can't love them just the way they are, before you try to make the improvements, you can't make the improvements on them, so.
I'm not going to tell anybody this is the easiest thing in the world to do. And we don't ever know from day to day how things are going to work out. But when you come in the morning with an open mind and a good heart and a lot of love to give, and I'm not saying that at 6 o'clock some of that hadn't ran out, but we continue to keep building on the goodness that we have and keep trying.
I am somebody. Somebody. I am somebody. Somebody.
They've shown me that through the process, and through that I've been able to pick up myself and go on and strive for better, and through that, it's never too late to change, you know.
Exodus has been so successful, there are now 3 more campuses in Atlanta. And through a parent group called Cities and Schools, dozens more are opening up across the country. Most of these kids had no chance of getting a diploma, but this year, 85% will graduate, the highest rate in the city of Atlanta.
And the standard speech is what we try.
At Exodus again, when adults intervene in a troubled teenager's life, they can break the downward spiral of self-destructive behavior. And most experts agree, low self-worth is often at the root of teen problems. Doing drugs to be accepted or putting a gun to your head because life is hopeless. And if you don't feel needed, you find love wherever you can. Out of 12 million teenage girls in America, 680,000 of them will have babies this year. Over half of all welfare payments go to women who gave birth while in their teens. And within 2 years, 30% of teen mothers have a second baby. The question has to be asked, when kids get involved with sex at an early age, do they think about the consequences?
No, not really. I guess was too much in love to think that a child can be conceived.
Barbara Sanchez was 16 when her life got turned upside down.
I was feeling real down and lonely. Lonely was the main thing I was feeling. My friends weren't around. Nobody would call me.
She had to turn to her mother for support.
The father of the baby wasn't around. He even left town.
I think my early feelings would have been anger with the boy, but I had to stop and realize that, it took both of them. Part of the feelings I had were maybe feeling sorry for her because of all the plans that she had. College was up and coming, and she had a lot of things going for her. She was an editor of a newspaper at the school she was at. She was just, she's just always been a real good girl.
In Albuquerque, where Barbara lives, so many girls were having babies that the community decided they had to do something. They realized they could confront the pregnancy and dropout rates together by starting a special school. Here at New Futures, 400 teen mothers and pregnant girls are trying to break the cycle of children having children. But everyone wants to know, why is this happening in such great numbers with our teenagers?
I think there's a variety of reasons why they end up getting pregnant. Many of them are looking for something or someone to love, and they think that in return they're going to get somebody to love them. And many of the girls just don't realize that babies are the most selfish little creatures that God ever put in this world, and it takes a long time for a baby to really learn to love.
It never really occurred to me that I could get pregnant to having sex.
He would always tell me, no, it's not going to happen to you, or I won't let you get pregnant. But I would believe him because I didn't know different.
I was a lot more scared of my parents finding out that I was having sex than I was of having a baby, of getting pregnant.
At New Futures, teen mothers can care for their baby and finish their education. Nationally, only 50% of teen mothers get a diploma, but here 85% graduate. So they're less likely to wind up on welfare, and almost none will have another baby right away, a direct result of new knowledge and new self-esteem for girls who've gone from dolls to diapers.
I miss going out with my friends and not people looking at me and saying she's got a baby.
Even with her education, Barbara and her son face an uncertain future. A single mother of 17 will have responsibilities she can't yet grasp. That's why some communities are working to develop new ways to prevent teen pregnancy in the first place. Mount Vernon, New York, a pleasant suburban community, is unaccustomed to big social problems. But 3 years ago, they received surprising news. They had a shockingly high teen pregnancy rate. There were months of hotly contested debate, but finally Mount Vernon's parents organized and came up with a plan.
Eager to hear some of your responses as to what has kept this program
They formed a task force, and working with the schools, developed an innovative curriculum they called Family Life.
What we have to do is we have to learn how to listen and guide our...
Addressing the concerns of both parents and clergy, they drew from the experience of people like former teen mother Cleaster
Very
Green.
important that we really try to go into our hearts and go back to what it really was like for us, as far as when we were thirsty for knowledge about sex, when our bodies were changing. I think that we should really try to get back to that, because that's the only way that we're really going to solve these problems. Not from just, you know, the administrators looking at the problem and it is there and, oh, look at this problem, you know, but to feel a part of it.
They decided to start young, the 5th grade, not the 10th, when it might be too late.
Today we're going to work with making smart decisions and learning how to say no, something that is very important for all of us.
Well, let's not go to the party. Let's go to my house.
But I don't want to. I want to go to the party.
In Mount Vernon, 5th grade's not too early to learn how to stand up for
I
yourself.
promised her we would go, so we're going.
Come on, Susan.
No.
Please?
No.
Pretty please?
No.
Teen pregnancy, I feel, occurs because children do not really value themselves, or they don't see their life as being very important, so they go out and do something that might make them noticeable. How did you feel about portraying the role of Susan?
It was fun. It was also hard because I couldn't convince him, so I had to use the broken record
Technique, okay. How hard do you think that is, Lisa?
It's hard because she likes him, but she doesn't want to say yes because she doesn't want to do that thing. She just says no over and over again.
She wants to still be friends with him.
Okay, how many of us have been in a situation where we really want to do something different than our peers want us to do? How many of us have ever felt that way? Okay, it's very difficult to be assertive in saying no.
Cleaster Green is one of several former teen mothers who fan out across the city talking to kids about what it was like to have sex and a baby too soon.
Let me just say that sex wasn't that great. It really was. I mean, I thought, oh my God, this is what they've been trying to keep me away from all the time. This is the thing that's been, you know, I mean, they make such a big deal as if it's just so fantastic. And I was like, oh my God, this is it?
One of the parents involved from the very beginning was Sue Ricoso.
This program is not called sex education. It's a family life program, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the child and the parents back together so they have that security, they have that feeling. They don't have to go out and have a baby at 14 or 15.
Maybe it was because the guy would say, you know, man, you've been going with her for all this time and you haven't done it. So somebody runs out and does it and gets somebody pregnant, and then they're in trouble. So
I have an older boy who grew very rapidly and didn't understand his changes. And after going through the 5th grade program, he was able to come home and talk to me about certain things that he couldn't say before. That he knew everybody else was going through them, that there wasn't something wrong with him. He could say it to me and it was okay.
The Family Life program has now been in place for 3 years. The teen pregnancy rate has gone down 23% since the program began. There were some unexpected byproducts of the Family Life program: improved performance in school and better ability to plan for the future. During our filming, a parent said, The two hardest times in life are being a teenager and being the parent of a teenager. That's why some of the most innovative groups working with young people today address parents as well as their children. With so many working parents and with grandparents playing a smaller role in child rearing, many adults haven't received the guidance they need. In Oklahoma, the police, schools, and psychologists came up with an unusual plan to work with the whole family. The idea is to head off anger and misunderstanding before it turns to tragedy.
When do you feel it, and why? Picture this.
Here, if a kid has been picked up for drug problems, committed a crime, run away from home, or attempted suicide, instead of being tried in court, teens are sent to this class on communication skills within the family.
Mom, I feel hurt. Hurt, good. How might else you be feeling?
Mad.
Mad? Let's do an iceberg. What's underneath that anger?
Slave.
Feels like a slave. Disappointed is real good. Probably does feel like a slave. That's real good, Mike. We got one.
Meanwhile, in the next room, parents of the same kids are attending a similar class.
What do you think you messages might be? You messages. My father had one. Use your head. You know better than that. He said that so much to me that I thought my head wasn't good enough for the tasks at hand. Okay, and what happens when your parents give you a you message? How do you react?
I'm not stupid. I'm not lazy, you know. I'm a person. Don't crunch me.
We talk to teenagers a lot about how they're feeling, and they sometimes feel that they're the only ones in the world that feel the same ways that they do. And they realize that that in everything in life that they do, they have choices. And one of the best things about the parent group is that they find out that other parents have the same problems.
You ready to go?
They have to come down here. They have to spend 30 minutes in a car to get down here. And for that first time, maybe in a long time, parent schedules along with kids' schedules coincide to do some talking.
Good night.
The youth services approach has been so successful, it's become part of the official law enforcement of Oklahoma City, according to Captain Bruce Shaw.
Our position is that if an agency like youth services, having individuals who are involved in criminal activity at a young age, can have them referred to the counselors there, that we're not going to meet these kids later on.
Police and counselors who feel a young person needs special attention refer teenagers to family counseling. Jackie Drake has had long-standing battles with her father, including one that started on the ride over.
Got here, and when we got out of the car, she said, after we leave here, I'm going to the movie show with my friend. I said, no, you're not. I said, you went out last night, and you can't go out tonight. Then she got mad at me.
I didn't cry until after he threatened me.
How did he threaten you?
Well, I can't say it.
Okay.
I told her, you better straighten up. You know, she started crying. And
This is Jackie's third session with her family and counselor Cindy Brady. The pain and hostility had grown to a point where the family had little hope that counseling would do any good.
Right away, he told me that he didn't need me and that nobody needed me, so I just figured if they don't need me, I don't need them either.
I told her we didn't need her the way she was.
He told me he didn't need me flat out, period.
The way she was.
He didn't say the way I am. He just said, I don't need you.
How did that make you feel when he said that?
It made me feel awful. That's why I left.
Jackie didn't have just one problem. She was in trouble with drugs, which led to problems in school, and finally she was picked up as a runaway.
Finally, she ran away, and I already thought we'd have to put her away to see if she was crazy or not.
Jackie, do you remember what you said when your dad told you that he was going to lock you up in a psych ward?
Well, I told him it wouldn't do no good. It'd make things worse.
What were you going to do?
Oh, I was going to kill myself.
During the session, the father was able to see that Jackie's goals for herself were very similar to the goals that he wanted her to have. And that's the first time that he had seen that. Also, Jackie was surprised during the first session that her father had such deep emotions.
And I felt like everybody was just against me, that I was all by myself, and nobody can understand me, what I was saying or anything. It's like everybody around me was different than me. No, I feel better now. I feel like I can communicate with them now. I can sit down and talk to them, and they try to
The
understand
act of
me.
opening up communication took Jackie off the streets, preventing bigger problems.
And we finally ended up here, which is the best thing that could ever happen to us.
Jackie Drake has a chance now, but not every family is so lucky. Across America, thousands of teenagers have reached the point of no return. It can happen in any town, in any home in America.
Well, I lost a very important part of my life. It will be a year, April the 22nd, that Carrie, my 14-year-old daughter, killed herself by hanging. I have asked myself the question, why did she do it? What is so terrible in a 14-year-old's life that they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel? And I really can't come up with anything.
I guess she always wanted to be somebody else.
Marcia Wenger and her daughter Missy have been asked over and over, why did Carrie kill herself?
I don't know, because she was like, I hated Carrie for it. I really hated her for leaving me, because I didn't think that she'd leave me until I was older, but she just left me, and I felt real alone.
This story has been told too often here in the sprawling suburbs of Denver. In Carrie's school district, there have been 11 teenage suicides in 6 months. And Denver's not unique. This year, 500,000 will attempt to kill themselves. 5,000 will succeed. Many parents feel powerless in the face of such a massive epidemic of death among our teens. But some fight their grief by getting down to work. People like Joyce and Craig Rupp.
Youth suicide is one of the last taboo topics in our society. I know because on March 18, 1983, my beautiful, talented, loving child, Stacy, killed herself. You are young people, need all the knowledge you can muster to combat the death wish of your pressurized friends.
The feelings that I was having after losing Stacy were threatening to destroy me, and I had to come up with something good. And I don't know, I seem to get that by speaking, particularly to parents. And when they come up and tell me that it does help, it helps make some sense out of Stacy's own death.
And in order to prevent suicide, you have to know what it is that causes the problem. And in order to solve that problem, somebody's got to identify it.
The Rupps have devoted themselves full-time to suicide prevention. They travel all over the state, talking to community leaders, educators, anyone who will listen. Their goal is to set up task forces that address what they believe are the root causes: hopelessness and painfully low sense of self-worth. For the Rupps, facing up to the loss of their daughter directly was the only way to deal with it.
Well, first of all, we didn't deny that it was a suicide. We just spoke right out and said it was suicide, and it happened, and we can't struggle with the why forever because Stacy took the answer with her.
Columbine High, where Stacy went to school, now has a suicide prevention program, one that does more than simply distribute leaflets. Every student has access to 18 carefully screened seniors who are trained to help with problems. It's called peer counseling. Gary Borgenson runs the program.
All right, and so again, feel free to stop this session and analyze.
These 17-year-olds have a big responsibility as peer counselors. They meet once a week using techniques like role-playing to learn how to help their schoolmates.
Brought you to this point today. What happened?
I'm just tired. I was sick of people. My parents are driving me up a wall.
Check out the sequence of the high risk and suicide. Does she have a plan?
Okay. Can I ask you a pretty stiff question?
Yeah.
Who's the suicide for? Is it for you, or is it to get back at someone else?
I guess it's to get back at someone else.
Are they qualified experts? No.
I don't know.
They're
I'm not
qualified friends, peer counselors. At the same token, the experts can't be a peer counselor. They're on the same level as the kid, and they can be with them in a way an adult can't. How are you guys feeling about your ability to handle the suicide picture? Are you feeling pretty good about it? Like training was enough, not enough? What do you think?
Well, the girl that I've been counseling was pretty serious about suicide. She did attempt it, and I've been talking to her all year. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about the suicide situation.
Marnie is a peer counselor who has been working with 15-year-old Shari Lynn. 6 months ago, Shari Lynn slashed her wrists but was rescued by a friend. Marnie knows the facts. Many who attempt suicide will try again.
In a way, I really did want to get out, but I also kind of really didn't want to. I still wanted to be here. You know, I'd go home and I was like by myself because my mom was working late hours and going out a lot at night, and so I just sit home and it's like I was kind of feeling like I was useless. It's like, why am I even here? You know, nobody even cares. And
Marnie's job is to encourage Shari Lynn to express her suicidal thoughts openly so she can work them through.
well, my self-esteem's okay because I feel better about myself in some ways, but I can still feel myself slipping sometimes. How close do you think suicide is now? I don't know, because like this past week I've been thinking about it. I get the feeling that you're still not too comfortable with it. Are the guilty feelings still there? And there's a lot of anger and stuff, so I don't think I could do it. Why not? Because of the hurt it would put everybody else through. Promise me that if you're ever thinking about suicide, that you'll call me or call one of the counselors. Okay? Promise me? Okay. And promise me you won't do it within the next 2 weeks, okay? Okay. And then we'll go from there. All right? Okay. Okay. Thanks.
When our peer counselors feel that they're over their heads, that this is a little bit much for them, a great amount of training in the peer counseling program has taught them how to refer that student to us, the adult counselor.
You gonna be okay?
But at the same time, I could just give you a whole list of names of peer counselors who have saved lives. Counselees have called them and said, I just slit my wrists. I just swallowed a bunch of pills. I need help. And because that peer counselor had given their phone number and because the peer counselor was there, paramedics came, help was available, and they were rescued. So there's no doubt in my mind it works. It saves lives. The efforts of people working together are bearing fruit in Denver. Out of even the most terrible suffering, people working together can forge a renewed hope and a choice of life over death.
I feel like I'm self-appointed to bring this out of the closet. I don't want other parents to have their heads in the sand like I did. There's no reason for it. That's basically where I'm coming from.
And in addition to that, I'd like to see these communities get a program in place that's continuing and ongoing so that they are empowered to take care of themselves, to prevent suicide, because we feel that it is preventable.
Preventable. That was the conviction shared by every one of the programs we visited. A belief that the present generation of young men and women are not lost, at risk perhaps, but far too precious to be written off. Tonight we've seen that both adults and teens can have a huge impact on the life of even the most troubled teenager by dealing not just with the most obvious symptoms, but by dealing with the whole person. And Here in the heart of Manhattan, a group of dedicated people are doing just that, taking on the entire range of teenage problems from suicide to alcohol, all in a city where problems are thought to be too big to solve. It's an after-school activity center called The Door, where teens can find everything from karate to counseling, all under one roof. When a teenager walks in here, he finds himself in a huge old converted department store full of activities.
It's like the door like you walk in and you see light and friends and just energy that flows around. Place where people, somebody will understand you.
My parents don't know me, don't know who I'm about. They just see me as this little girl they can't understand for the hell. They don't know what I think, what I feel. And then you have your own peers that sometimes don't know, and you're just lost until you find people who you do care about. It's like, wow. So life, I'm living in my life.
It was an audacious experiment for the middle of Manhattan, but people weren't afraid of teens causing problems because they knew where to begin. By developing trust, according to counselor Liel Telfayen.
Developing trust is the first barrier to get through with most teenagers. Most teenagers are very rebellious anyway.
Young people, as any human being, do get bored when they have nothing to do and nothing
Julia
worthwhile
Glover
to occupy.
is program director.
Especially for adolescents, they are so driven by a need to prove themselves, to know who they are. But when young people don't have something to do with their, quote, leisure time, they become very demoralized. And then that leads to destructive behavior.
And I mean, back then, before I first started coming here, I mean, I really felt like there was just no other way. Just slit the wrist, you know, and that was it. I mean, I felt that life wasn't being fair to me, and that me taking the drugs, I wasn't being fair to me. So the best way to do is just, you know, end it. But, you know, coming to the door, I realized, you know, hey, I'm not the only person that feels this way.
The Door is supported by a combination of federal and private money, but it's the huge pool of dedicated volunteers that really makes it go. Volunteers who love to work with kids.
To dancing here, and I found that the people here at the door were different than just people you meet outside. I mean, I feel like us here that, I don't want to sound like conceited, but I feel that we're special.
Another way to build self-respect is by having a job. These teenagers run a restaurant and catering service where they learn responsibility and gain a sense of accomplishment.
Stir-fried vegetables with chicken to go.
It's this wide variety of activities that makes the Door so unusual. Counselor Aisha Holtziku tutors teen mothers in reading and other basic skills.
Okay, let's try this word.
Glee.
Okay.
She also leads them in a discussion group where they share their struggle as teen mothers.
Now that you've had the baby, how do you feel about yourself?
With me, it was really ironic because I got so pregnant so fast, you know. And right now, I'm a single parent. I'm not with my baby father, so it's really hard. So every day I see my son getting older and older, and I don't have nothing to give him but promises. So I came here to the Door, so now I can read a little bit better, speak a little bit better, and I got instructed like Aisha. So far, so good.
And the most important thing that I think the Door has helped me to learn is that more important than worry about whether your mother loves you or whether your girlfriend loves you or whether your boyfriend loves you is loving yourself. And I mean, I don't think that's stressed enough in schools or it's stressed in church. It's not, they're always talking about love God, love thy neighbor, love this person. They don't ever talk enough about loving yourself.
They never talk enough about loving yourself. But they do that here, and they do it in every one of the programs we've seen. Kids learning how to respect themselves and take care of themselves. Because a few caring adults came to them and showed them how.
The Door, the House of Life, Teen Court are shining examples that even the most difficult problems can be solved. We've seen that each problem our teens face doesn't exist in a vacuum, but may be symptoms of deeper problems. No one is safe. Not you, not me, and certainly not our children. For too long, our nation denied that drug abuse had health and social consequences. We denied that anything could be done about it. But slowly, the wall of denial is crumbling, and the same is now true for teen suicide, teen pregnancy, and for school dropouts, for teen crime. These issues will get worse unless you and I join those who are trying to do something about them. So I urge each and every one of you to think hard about the consequences of doing nothing. Pick up the phone, join your local task force, start one of your own. Work with your schools, your civic leaders. We've started and must continue the war against drug abuse. But we must also fight against these other related problems. In the past hour, we've seen people hard at work, and that's why I'm here to urge you to join us in our fight against the erosion of ideals and hope. Today, we can work together in our communities to develop the best equipped young people in the world. What better legacy can we leave our children?